How's it going, everybody? So, now that Nobushi has gotten some positive changes, her position among the cast has changed a little bit for the better. She isn't quite S-tier meta-like, but in the recent tournament we could watch Clutch try out again. So, the competitive players are testing her capabilities. Now, what surprised me in my comment section was one that asked, has Nobushi actually been meta before? Which frankly baffled me a little, but then I remembered not everyone's been playing since the start. So I thought about making this video here and maybe even a series if there's interest in the former glory of some heroes. And Nobu certainly had her glory days. Wasn't for nothing that she was dubbed the Queen of Mid Lane. But as I mentioned, it's understandable that people don't remember, as this was during the early seasons. I'm talking season 1 to 5 roughly. Season 5 was when she got her rework together with Kensei's, Conquerors, Zerkers and Highlanders. While hers wasn't as extensive as the other heroes, it did address some major issues with her kit. Yet at the same time, it left others in and introduced some new ones. I'll get into details in just a bit. For now, just know that it was always a small thing here and there that made her stand above the rest. Let's talk release first, well, on the first 2 seasons I guess. During that time, Duels was the mode that was considered competitive. We did see a few brawls, tourneys here and there, but emphasis was clearly on 1v1s. While Shugoki was the absolute bane of that mode in Season 1, he did receive some substantial nerfs, and at the same time, Unlock Tech established itself in the meta. Pretty much every competitor knew how to use it, how to identify it, and, to a degree at least, how to deal with it. Same goes for guard break feinting. I'll put a card to an old video of me where you can see both Unlock Tech and GB feints on my radar. The reason for those exploits, as many might call them, to have been so prevalent back then was simply because of the fact that nearly everything was almost 100% reactable, a notion that to this day seems to be completely foreign to some players, and the fact that it is bad for the game as well. This whole debacle of Starfest meets Unlock Tech peaked in the Hero Series tournament at the end of Season 2, an official Ubisoft Duel tournament. All 3 platforms were represented and PC had the spotlight with the most participants that qualified over 4 online tournaments the weeks prior. And as many know, that tournament was won by Nobushi. Alanakin took the trophy and many funny articles were written about him cheating his way to victory. Everyone who remotely knew anything about how the game worked at that level would have known that all these players were familiar with the quote-unquote cheats. Ubisoft outsourced the tournament back then, and the organisers were made aware of the issue well in advance, and it was not forbidden according to the rules. So with money on the line, it's only understandable that people would use it. So why did Nobushi benefit from unlocks so much? Well, 2 moves mostly: her zone attack and sidewinders. Everyone should be familiar with Nobu's zone hitbox, and that it's almost 360 degrees around her, starting on the right. Now back then, the zone did 33 damage. Combine this with being able to move your hitbox and hit within 100 to 200 ms, this was a near instant 33 damage, because it was so easy to manipulate when it hits with very little chance to miss, and that made it extremely safe as well. Your opponent can block, which gives no punish, and dodging was almost impossible as it hit pretty much instantly, and obviously you couldn't parry unlocked attacks. And for sidewinders and other attacks obviously as well, it was mostly about recognizing whether the attack was unlocked or not. This was pretty much her offense, but truly broken was also her defense, one thing that wasn't adjusted for a long time. I'm talking about the hidden stance option select here. Yep, right back to the topic that is still very much relevant even today. Her hidden stance option select was so potent because hidden stance had no GB vulnerability. Imagine being able to parry with a dodge and always being able to counter guard break during the dodge. And on top of that, hidden stance would allow you to dodge out of it. This made it possible to cover almost all options on reaction. Attacking a Nobushi that had good reactions and was able to utilize this to the fullest, well, was impossible. My first time I had this happen to me was when I met Prime Danny, today Karma, in a match when she was queuing with, I think it was Brogla and Vivid, so they were in EU. Well, it was quite eye-opening. I fought Alanakin before, but he never relied on the option select as heavily as Danny did. I think I landed a single light that first fight. This little anecdote is just to show you how truly strong her defense was back then. But the time of duels was drawing to an end, and Dominion established itself as the main competitive mode. And she did have a place there as well. I did say that she was the queen of mid lane, but before we talk about that, let me mention her third feat. The very first feat in this game that got removed. Blissful Rest was the name of it, and it was pretty much a full heal. Nowadays, if you watch Nobushi use Second Wind, you can clearly tell that it is a different animation compared to all the others. Everyone else just shrugs their shoulders in some fashion, whereas Nobu does her T-pose. This is also reflected in her activation time and the recovery of Second Wind. It is by far the worst of them all. But as I said, back then, it was a heal over time, but it healed so quickly that it was pretty much negligible. If someone used it, they ended up full HP, even if you wailed on them the whole time. And then just a reminder that her feats in general are amazing. Smoke Bomb is still banned today, and Fire Trap is a superb tool to control mid lane. Which brings me to exactly that lane and her tier 1 feat. Body count was much stronger back then. Combined with her ability to clear a wave almost instantly, she was able to sustain there the whole match. Only rivaled by a Conqueror with heal on block, but he was overshadowed by the sheer clear speed of Nobushi. That speed could mostly be attributed to her dodge recovery cancels. Unlocked Sidewinder back to back would mow through the lane and clear ridiculously fast, while at the same time being extremely safe, as they were for one unlocked, so not parryable, and second, you couldn't really GB her either, as she could chain them almost infinitely because of the stamina regen of body count. Mid lane was, and still is, a massive source of points. If your team can farm quickly and consistently, then a point lead is almost guaranteed. Feel free to fresh up your memory. Then came her rework in Season 5, which took some of the things away from her, including, albeit very briefly, her non-punishable hidden stance. GB vulnerability was added for like 2 weeks and then removed again because of excessive whining, to put it nicely. So she was allowed to keep her broken option select for a long time after. And this was during the time where Dominion tournaments were held and no team was without her. Ganking was prevalent back then as well, and Shaman has been out for a season or 2 already. And I don't think I need to explain the synergy between the two heroes. Combine that with how Shaman's Bite was armored back then, guaranteeing 2 Nobu heavies on a bleeding opponent. Bleed wasn't cleansed until the very end of the bite. The rework also brought a faster kick. It was sped up from 800 to 600 ms, which then introduced a nice interaction between Hidden Stance Heavy and that kick. The Hidden Stance Heavy had a quicker link to the kick, which made the kick undodgeable on a hit and block, making the Hidden Stance Heavy a pseudo unblockable, as you had no way to defend against the kick afterwards. You had to parry that heavy to be on the safe side. But as that was an obscure mechanic with no clear indicator and all, Ubisoft decided to remove it instead of making UI adjustments and incorporating that kind of mechanic in future characters. Oh well, can't have everything. And then the same happened to Hidden Stance. Eventually it got nerfed and her ridiculous option select was no more. So slowly but surely she faded out of the meta and Lawbringer took her place. He was much safer in mid, even if his clear speed was slower. Nobushi's wasn't as fast either anymore, as her dodge recovery values were absolutely butchered back then. And that is the Nobu that most people remember. For the last 2 years, she's been somewhat of a dumpster fire, and no matter how many people liked her, in-game, she remained quite bad. So, let's see how far she can climb this time. Many players do enjoy her a great deal, so that might skew the view a little. But yeah, that's Nobu's story. I hope I haven't forgotten any major parts from back then. I hope you enjoyed that video. It was just a recap of the past, but not everybody knows everything from back then. Let me know if you want me to make this a series or leave it as a one-off. Thanks for watching. Laters, everybody. Oh, my bad.
Nice. If you guys can just hold, we should be fine.
Ooh, there's someone coming too. See? No.